What's up, everybody? It's the Pope Elijah Burke, and I want you to tune in whenever you can to make sure that you're listening to Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with Adam and Fiona.
NWA Powerr! Crockett Cup season is upon us on NWA. This coming Sunday at Forney, Texas, the Crockett Cup will be taped. We'll be very much looking forward to that when it airs on Roku in the coming months. But we have to get there. And on NWA this week, we made some steps to do it. Now, I'm not going to be joined by Miss Fiona Lochran this week. Unfortunately, again, having issues viewing NWA. To be fair, I did as well. Managed to do it though. Finally managed to do it and get it watched. And as I cannot not record when it is Crockett Cup season, the 40th anniversary of the Crockett Cup as well. And that is where we begin with Powerr this week with the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, aiming to make the Crockett Cup theirs on the 40th anniversary, along with the names such as the Road Warriors and the Briscoes. Well, they had first round action this week against a team of Zion and Bones. Bones is a peculiar looking thing, that's for sure. He wrestles barefoot. I've got some kind of mask on. Bit of a weird combination, this for Brandon McCord, the manager of this really weird team. That's all I'm going to say. But of course, always good to see the Good Brothers in action on Powerr, and they stoke their claim as the second seeds, which has caused a little bit of upheaval in the NWA, especially with the Country Gentlemen, who kind of were a bit miffed at the fact that they were the number two seed. And I can understand it. As I said, I don't really want the Kazanas in the Crockett Cup, but I do get where they're coming from here. The resume of the Good Brothers is great, but just not in the NWA. So they're becoming two seeds, especially when we had last year's finalists, the Colognes, go down a space to number three. It didn't make a lot of sense for me. Certainly didn't make a lot of sense for the Kazanas. We'll get onto the Kazanas in a minute. This was an interesting matchup. Obviously, we had the size of Gallows, you had the kind of speed and technical ability of Anderson, and you had the great submission technical ability of Zion, and just the unpredictability of Bones. I think that's the best way of putting this. It was great to see the Carl Anderson spine buster. I don't think anybody right now does it sweeter than the machine gun himself. To be fair, they didn't get too much offense, Bones and Zion. A little bit here and there on Anderson. He didn't take him long to make the tag. Um, to Big Doc, who does a good cross body on both of them, by the way, on this. Really enjoyed that part of it. They did hit the kind of reverse 3D for a near fall, and then finally the magic killer puts the exclamation mark on the victory for Gallows and Anderson, and they will go on to Forney for the Crockett Cup this weekend. Them to record the Crockett Cup this weekend, of course. What we don't know is who they're facing. Now, on the brackets that we saw on NWA, they take on the winners of the Slime Balls or Mims and Pope. And now here's my thing with this. And everyone knows I love the Slime Balls, and I'm a bit miffed by their number, the seeding. And they get Mims and Pope, which for me is like, how's that fair? Mims and Pope are like seven seed, I think, and Slime Balls are 10. These guys got to the quarterfinals last year, the champions of the United States of America tag team division, and they're 10? Come on. Anyway, a good victory for Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. They will go on to Forney. We don't know who they've got yet, and unless you get a spoiler, which is hard to come by, which is a good thing on the NWA, you won't know until it airs, obviously, on Roku. I'd like to have had it that it was live this week, but obviously we're a bit too much to ask right now. We go backstage, and Hollywood Haley J is talking to her dog Stormy about the fact that Kylie Page was blaming the dog for the shit that she stepped on last week on Powerr, and she called Kylie Bay. She said that she dank, and she was going to wipe her ass in the ring in the main event of the evening, which we will find out about a little bit later on. But then a real interesting promo aired from Alex Misery of the Lost was basically now it looks like he's got a new vision. And it looks like the Lost may be no more. And Alex Misery has his sights set on something shiny. I can only imagine that something shiny is a championship of some kind. Maybe the junior heavyweight division, maybe the US, maybe the TV, maybe the world. Alex Misery is definitely one of the most talented guys in the NWA. So if he's coming away from the Lost and going for gold, then I'm very much all in to see what happens in that mix going forward on the NWA. So looking forward to seeing what happens with that. Speaking of the junior heavyweight division, that moves us nicely to the next match. Damian Fenrir and Will Austin making his NWA debut. I can watch Damian Fenrir all day long. I think I've used the words on other review shows for other companies, blue chip candidate. I've said that about Bear Bronson in TNA, and I think NWA have a real blue chipper here in Damian Fenrir. And the junior heavyweight division for me now has overtaken the NWA women's division. I thought was the best, they've currently got there. So I'm really impressed with what I see in that junior heavyweight division. And this match was great. There was a little bit at the start where Fenrir went for the handshake, the dozy do, which Will Austin actually fell for and nearly got pinned straight away. Really great action. Now remember, the junior heavyweight division is capped at 225, the weight limit, which is a good thing as well. There was a really good cannonball in this match from Austin, and a corkscrew off the top rope looked like it was a little short on the landing. May have not have hit it as much as that he wanted to. But Will Austin had a great show. And I think the 225 and the junior heavyweight division, it's impossible really not to have a great showing. You really can't have that chemistry if you're not going to do well in that division. You're really going to lose out. If you can't have a good showing in the 225 division, then something mustn't be no, it mustn't be on there. But there was a great swinging DDT in this as well for a 2 3/4 count from Will, and a Pele kick as well. But he went to the well one too many times with the high flying offense, gets caught by Fenrir into a huge power bomb for the 1, the 2, the 3. Fenrir definitely has got that junior heavyweight title firmly, and he's got Fenrir and Slade. Fenrir and Slade, what a match that could potentially be in that division. You add Alexander Miserable into that as well. You've got yourself an incredible triple threat. I'm looking forward to that happening at some point in the NWA, but that division right now is on fire. Now, I mentioned the women's division on NWA, and we got a succession of promos for a match happening next week between Serena Val and Kenzie Page. And she was basically, Serena Val was saying that your time has come and gone to Kenzie, and either you're going to turn the page or you're going to be forgotten about in the NWA. Who could have thought that people were saying that Kenzie Page is finished in the NWA? She's 20 odd years old. She's had a long women's championship reign. But you have to admit that things hasn't gone very well for Kenzie recently. So an opportunity next week for Kenzie to get back on the winning pattern and back up within the women's division. El Cantro Tattoo was next, the next in line of skits from the NWA. The Kazanas in a tattoo shop. Never thought I would see the day. But one of the Kazanas thinks he's a macho man. That's AJ Kazana getting a tattoo, and he was selecting or trying to select a tattoo, and Papa Joe wasn't happy with his selections. They wasn't by the book at this point. And then Joe Kazana was then talking to the tattoo artist and was like, "Where are you from?" She was like, hell. And he was like, I wrestled there against Ric Flair. Apparently, I thought that was a great line for Joe Kazana. But we move back into the ring now. We move back into NWA on the Power Station. And Colby Corino, it's always good to see. I was going to provide us with another update, and he was really getting emotional about how his world, really fell apart recently and how he was a drug addict living under a bridge, but wrestling gave him a life. And we were going to hopefully get to a point where we were going to understand where he's at in the recovery process from his severe neck injury. But once again, we were disturbed, shall we say, by the Southern Six, AT and Kerry Morton, and they called Colby Corino a failure and a coward. And nobody gives a damn about Colby, apparently. But the last time that Colby and Kerry faced off, Colby hurt Kerry because he hit him in the no-no area. Well, this time they were going to finish off Colby and make sure that that disabled sticker stays in his car. Colby not cleared, as Cole Davis was saying, and just as about they were going to collide, out comes Brian Idol to even the odds. So are we going to be getting a Brian Idol Colby Corino tag team against the Southern Six later on? Obviously, the Southern Six are in the Crockett Cup, of course. Can't forget that. But who knows what's going to happen with that? But I'm hoping that we ain't going to be too long before Colby Corino is cleared to compete. Back to El Cantro tattoo now, and the tattoo has been selected from AJ Kazana. But in walks Natalia Markova and Tom Latimer, of all people. Latimer with his hairstyle making him look 20 years younger. And, they're actually looking for Latimer was going to meet his wife and they were looking for a place to eat. So they were going to ask the tattoo artist where to go. And Casey and AJ think Latimer's French. Not too sure how many French people have a Gloucestershire or wherever it was, or Bucket, wherever he is from accent. But okay, Latimer is French, apparently. And that's where we ended. Latimer and Markova left. And the tattoo was continuing on AJ Kazana. Cannot wait to see the tattoo when it is done. We got then the promo from Eddie Grayson and Jack Valor, who are entered into the number 16th seed opportunity at the Crockett Cup. So they may get an opportunity. If you remember last week, I mentioned that the 16th seed of the Crockett Cup is going to be determined in Forney, and it will be determined, I said, usually in a battle royal with a selection of teams. Again, their team got there last week, of course, and we're going to be seeing potentially, well, we will be seeing Eddie Grayson and Jack Valor in the 16th seed opportunity at the Crockett Cup. Which brings me nicely onto another first round match in the Crockett Cup. Red, white, and jacked. JAC and Wrecking Ball Legursky takes on the number 3 seeds and runners up that were the number 2 seeds last year. You see where I'm getting with the seeding here. The Colognes in this Primo and Epico, world renowned, of course. The Colognes, and they didn't really start this match off very well. They were getting dominated at early doors on this by the power of Wrecking Ball Legursky and JAC. They were throwing around and splashing them like anything. Eventually, Primo gets to tag in and starts using the experience, and quickens up that pace a little bit. Because obviously, with Wrecking Ball and JAC, you don't always get the speed, but you get the power. Primo had the experience and the pace to quicken it up. Epico got tagged back in. And eventually, JAC was on the receiving end of a bit of a beat down, but eventually Wrecking Ball got tagged in. He started cleaning house. 400-pound hip thrusts into the corner, folks, isn't something that I would like to be on the receiving end of. I don't know if the Colognes liked it much either. But eventually, the Colognes managed to throw Wrecking Ball, push Wrecking Ball into JAC, causing a bit of a misfunction or malfunction at the junction, so to speak, which allowed the backstabber onto JAC and the frog splash And that got the one, the two, and the three. And the Colognes, last year's runners up, are going to Forney this weekend in their bid and their quest to go one better this year and win the 2026 Crockett Cup in its 40th year. And they will take on the winners of Murdoch and Franks or the new tattooed AJ Kazana and the Country Gentlemen. Another team in the Crockett Cup is, of course, Pretty Boy Smooth, but he will not be joined by his Holy Grail compadre EC3, as we know has left the NWA. So they introduced us to his new partner, Hayden Backlund of Exodus Pro. And those of you that know the name Backlund will know that there is, I think his nephew is Bob, a nephew of Bob Backlund. Hayden Backlund will be a part of the new vision of the Holy Grail, but a plan to keep it player at the Crockett Cup. We then go to Dr. Vic's abode and the planning of La Princesa's birthday, Tiffany Nieves. And, well, Dr. Vic was expecting Tiffany and Sam, but had Greta there instead. And she thought, well, he thought they were coming and he was reeling off some names of people like Jelly Roll to bring to the party. He said one name, and Greta was quiet through all of this. And he said one name, and she was like, "He's dead." I was like, "Is he? I better call him." Yeah, which was quite funny, and it ended there at that point for now. But we return to Dr. Vic's abode a little bit later on in the show for your viewing pleasure. Now, it's him. Yes, it's him. It's Carson Drake against Chico Adams. Carson Drake, of course, coming out with uh, Aaron Stevens and Lockjaw. Stevens has got the Federation of Champions, of course, in the Crockett Cup. He does have the wrestling machines and the slime balls in that cup. But nevertheless, listen, Carson Drake makes quick work of Chico Adams and gets the job done. He does now a new version of the John Cena's five knuckle shuffle, which I have called the Carlson knuckle shuffle. Yes, there you go, folks. The Carlson knuckle shuffle. They did mention on comms, Joey G, the Deal Machine, and Tim Storm. They did mention the old cooking with Carson that we saw last year. That because they mentioned how good of a chef Carson Drake was, and for those of you that saw Cooking with Carson, you will humbly disagree with that. That's for sure. Like I said, it didn't take too long before the Carson shuffle or the stroke picked up the 1, 2, 3, and then Carl Davis gets in the ring, and Carson Drake was basically calling uh, Chico Adams a jobber and very much wasted his time. He was joined in there by the wrestling machines, to which Aaron gets on the mic and was saying that he's got two chances of winning the cup that he's never won or he's never managed a team to win the Crockett Cup. And Carl Davis was trying to play a bit of a devil's advocate, saying, "Well, which one do you want? Do you want the wrestling machines or do you want the slime balls?" And yeah, stirring up a few problems, into which he got called a crumb bum, I think. By Carson, and they leave to face another day. Kenzie Page was next, and it was all about her match next week with Serena Vow, and people are going to remember who the hell Kenzie Page is as Kylie Page takes over the conversation. Now she's going to wipe the crap on Haley J's face, to which Kenzie said, "Well, you're not even ready to compete." It's like, shit. And then she went and got herself ready for the main event. We go back to Dr. Vic's abode, and La Princesa is there. And Vic was like, "Hey, you showing up late would have been celebrating your birthday at this rate." And she was like, "I'll show up when I want because I'm a champion and I'll bring who I want." To which Silas Mason was there this week. And yeah, that's going to be an interesting. He had brought the Princessa and he was the Kingdom Come. Anyway, Markova was talking about how she was disappointed with what Tiffany Never's done last week, and she's always hiding behind Greta. She said that Greta will get hers, but next week she's got the submission specialist that is Hera, and that she will not tap out to Hera. Well, next week we find out if she does or not, because that is a contest next week. Will the Women's Championship be on the line? I do not know. We'll have to wait and see. However, it is main event time on Powerr as Hollywood Haley J takes on Kylie Page. This was a fight, nothing short of a fight between these two. They really don't like each other. Stormy was at ringside, being looked after, while Haley J was in the ring. There was a lot of lots of fighting in this. They really don't care for each other. Nice crossbody in the ropes by Kylie Page, and the cake in the face, and she rubbed the cake in the face as well, did Kylie to Haley J, and it wasn't long again before the slugfest kept going. Now Tommy Henry was in Kylie Page's corner as well. Some big, good shining wizard by Kylie that got a 2 count. Before then, she ducked the power slap from Haley J, does another Shining Wizard, and picks up the victory. However, Haley J wasn't happy and continued to beat down Kylie Page at the end. And Tommy, excuse me, Tommy Henry literally had to pick up Kylie Page and take her to the back, which was hilarious. Excuse me, hilarious way to wrap up Powerr this week. But a good fun episode as we move on into the Crockett Cup, which continues next week on NWA, of course, on Roku. We'll be covering it next week. With any luck, Fiona will be with us, but if not, it will just be me. Follow us everywhere on HTT Buckle, and we'll be back with some more interviews and review shows very, very soon. But until then, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.